We can meet later.
When are they ready? Everybody speaks English, yeah? Oh, but we're not going to have translation for this. Just so that you get an understanding of what we're doing here. It's just an opportunity to discuss interesting subject matters in English. Because when it has to be done with a translation, it's very difficult. It slows it down. And really, I don't get very many opportunities to speak directly in English in a forum where it can be recorded, because it seems that actually a lot of devotees or former devotees from around the world are very interested. And the Russian translation disturbs them when they're not speaking Russian. So, and also, a more selfish desire is that when I put together a book, I find that things which come up in casual conversation are usually very good concepts, or very good, better ones than if one were to simply sit down behind a screen. It's like more personal. There's people out there, and the concepts come out very much more fluidly, freely. The concepts flow better. And it's those concepts which actually make a book or whatever have life, not just the words. So words you can always put, but concepts they have to just manifest somehow. So I thought this was a very good attempt. We're going to just try. We'll try today, we'll try tomorrow. If we don't like it, well, we say we tried. And if we do like it, we can do it some more. I don't know if maybe more people would like to come also who can speak English. And you said you were going to invite some other people too, from outside or whatever.
There are some already here.
Yeah?
And we just open. Somebody is appearing.
Okay. Okay. Good.
Microphone.
So if anybody would like to just talk about something, that would be the best thing. I know Upendra usually has 10 million questions. You can depend on him for questions. He's very dependable.
I'm a little bit afraid.
You don't have to.
Because maybe my questions are stupid.
Well, it's okay. Tape is cheap.
So I have a list.
I'm sure. Not that Upendra should ask all the questions. He'll start off.
Of course.
He's got his list already, and other persons can also.
But
I have one question.
One question, yeah. What?
I have to tell everybody that not everybody is a former ISKCON member, so we have to consider this. There might be discussions which everything doesn't have to be connected with.
Yes, sure.
What with ISKCON.
Yeah.
But if something is connected with ISKCON, then it is
No, it's just
natural.
I'll figure it out, I guess.
So I can talk.
Yeah.
So the idea that we should accept ourselves as we are looks somewhat opposite, in my understanding, to the idea of strong law of karma, strict following dharma, punishment for our mistakes and sins and other similar things. You understand?
Yeah.
Or in other words, it looks opposite to the feeling of law and reverence before God. Rather, it looks that God decided to forgive all souls and allow them to perfect themselves without considering their faults and sins. Do we have the phenomenon of extraordinary mercy of Lord towards fallen souls of Kali Yuga? Or maybe it was wrong conception of Lord's attitude in different traditions and sects, or some other explanations. Do you understand?
Yeah. I think, of course you're not supposed to say I think, but I think, I do, that, you know, when you speak about acts and punishment, or acts and rewards, it's kind of like business. I do this, I get that. But life is not like that. And also, you know, if you punish every wrong thing, for instance, that can be very counterproductive to what you're trying to accomplish by punishment. For many years now, I've really been thinking about this concept of punishment, because I remember when I was in college, I had a sociology course which dealt with the concept of capital punishment. You know, when a murderer, he would be killed. And this was, of course, I think in 1969 or something like that, when in America the concept of capital punishment was very much being discussed amongst the scholars, because there was a big debate. Some thought it was good, some thought it was bad. And the ones who thought it was good always used the principle that it's a deterrent, that if you see someone else being killed for killing someone else, that would deter you from killing someone, because you would see the punishment. Now, even if you look in the Bhagavatam, when Maharaj Parikshit asked Shukadeva Goswami a similar thing, he said, we've seen criminals get punished by the state, and others have also seen criminals be punished by the state, and yet they still do criminal actions, which is a very good question by a king, because after all, this is the business of government leaders, to figure out how to preserve law and order in a society. And every administrator in a society knows that punishment per se does not necessarily make a society ordered, because, you know, people are being punished all over the place, and that doesn't improve things. What does improve things is knowledge. Of course, maybe in some cases a certain kind of punishment might make things a little better for other persons, but I don't believe it corrects the person who was punished. He may become more cautious about doing that thing which caused the punishment. But that may not necessarily, you know, we're not talking in absolutes here, may not necessarily repair within that person's consciousness or heart the thought or the desire or the attitude, which is probably the best word, which caused that person to commit that unlawful crime, whatever it may be. You can look at children, for example. And the example of children is actually interesting, because when you speak in terms of higher laws, which is what your question was addressing, people in general are more or less on the platform of cosmic children, because they are not so advanced as to be adults, so to speak, in the celestial realms, who really understand much better what's right and what's wrong. And even up there, still they do things which we consider wrong, or even they consider wrong, and even they are punished for it. It doesn't necessarily correct them. There are many examples of that. So, you take the example of a child. Now, if you punish children, it does not necessarily correct them. In fact, mainly it represses them. There's a difference between repressing someone and correcting someone. Just like, you know, if you make a rule, don't do this. Just like all the parents tell their children, you know, maybe I'm drinking, but you should not. You cannot. Maybe I'm smoking, but you cannot. Or you should not take drugs. And children, they click, click, click. Why not? It must be good. because parents educate their children or train their children as they're growing up to understand that whatever is forbidden is good. Because somehow there's something good in it. Now, of course, children are not intelligent enough to understand what's on the other side of that, you know? It may be good in the sense of it's enjoyable, but in the long run, it may not be good. That they don't see. Because they see, well, here my parents are smoking. It must be good, for example. But the parents know, this is not good, it's a horrible thing. But I can't stop. Therefore, I shall tell my child not to do it so that they won't end up in the same situation. But the child can't see that. The child only sees the parent does it and says, you shouldn't do it. And the parent continues to do it. Therefore, the child thinks, he gets the attitude, there are many such examples, he gets the attitude, it's better what the parent says don't do, I don't do now in public, but later on I will do, because it's good. And if the parent is not there, I will do. So that not doing it while the parent is there is repressing. In a spiritual sense also, if you are in some kind of organization where you're told not to do something, you might repress in the same way. Because you know it's enjoyable. You also think that it's not good to do in the long run, but you don't have that realization not to do it. So you repress the desire to do it. Whereas a person who in knowledge understands this is bad loses the desire to do that bad thing. For example, children beat other children on the head sometimes with toys. Again, the child example. But when the child becomes more aware of the feeling of the other, as we were talking when we were eating, you know, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. That's a very good principle, actually. Because if you know how you feel pain, then you don't want to cause pain to others. If you at all care about others. Now, there are, of course, sick people, and sickness is, of course, a relative term. You can be more or less sick, but sick people who feel, well, that hurts me, and I want to cause that pain to others for some reason or another. That we can discuss, that psychology, that's her department. But in fact, when you are aware, and I don't just mean in the sense of you have some theoretical knowledge, I mean you're aware of others. You know, you feel how others feel. That, and their feeling causes you to feel something else. It's like a reciprocation. Just like if somebody puts out towards you some hate or pain, it makes you feel in a certain way, and that other person receives, while putting out, also how you feel. So it creates this kind of loop, energetic loop, which is going on, and which can get more and more violent in some cases, which can cause a fight or a war. In countries, that's how wars start. They become energetic loops. But when you can feel the pain of another, and you receive that pain in the sense of accepting it, in the way in which they accepted it, then immediately you will not do that which causes them pain. And you will not want to do it. It's not that you are repressing the desire to cause someone pain. It's because you can feel what's happening. You immediately lose the desire to cause others pain. In other words, it's the difference between theoretical knowledge and realized knowledge. Now, because of this realization, you stop doing that which is bad. Of course, bad's a relative term, but we're talking here about what is actually harmful, or you feel is bad like that. Now, that realization is far superior to the realization you get when you punish somebody, or that person gets when you punish him. And you can see that. Criminals, second-time offenders, third-time offenders, permanent residents of jail, persons who leave jail, immediately do the same crimes again. Okay, I'm sure you can find maybe 5, 10, 15, I don't know, % of the criminals actually feel like going straight, as they call it on TV. You know, they don't want to do it again. But that's only because they don't want to suffer in the jail again. Not necessarily that they've changed their ways, because they also cheat in other ways. They cheat in ways which won't end them up in jail. They cheat like everybody else cheats. But when you actually have the realization that this is harming others, and I don't want to be harmed, I don't want to harm them, then you do other things too. You start changing in other ways, you know? When you do your work, you make sure the person gets a fair deal if you're selling something or something. Or if you're, whatever, helping another person who's sick across the street, an old lady or something, if you have that feeling of compassion, you do it out of realization, not out of any force or anything like that. That's the superior position. In other words, the position of realization is superior to the position of being forced to do something. Punishment is a force. Understanding is realization. For a person who is not developed, punishment simply makes them more angry and hateful. For a person who is highly developed, punishment does not have to be so great in order to make them think about why it happened to them, what they're doing wrong, and what they can do better. Yeah? So punishment does have sometimes a good effect, but only for those who are intelligent enough or advanced enough to understand it. Therefore, because the Supreme is very intelligent, much more intelligent than we can imagine, it is not necessarily their, plural, Radha and Krishna, for example, their purpose to force you to understand things by just making you suffer. And we've seen plenty of examples of people suffering their whole life and understanding nothing. Neither is that even an intelligent way to educate people. The more intelligent way is to put them in a situation by which they can learn. And there's the answer to your question. That free will to learn, that free will to make a change, to create your destiny in that sense. That doesn't mean that, for example, if the law of karma, whatever that may mean, because actually that's not very well understood, law, action and reaction. If the law of karma does grant you a lot of money, that doesn't mean you're going to be happy. You can have a lot of money and be totally miserable. You can have no money and be completely happy. All these things that one may feel he gets out of karma are not the point of karma. The point is the happiness and distress. And yet, the happiness and distress are something we create because of what we are and how we deal towards others. In other words, if I'm full of love, and I'm giving that love to others, if I'm giving happiness to others, if I'm giving satisfaction to others, if I'm giving security to others, naturally, they will feel that they wish to reciprocate with that. And that reciprocation, if I'm aware and open enough, gives me that satisfaction, happiness, and security that I like. So, who is it that creates that situation of love? It's you. It has nothing whatsoever to do with karma. There's no law of karma that says, I will love, I will not love. That's your personality, that's your energy. It has nothing to do whatsoever with karma. And if you can give out love and get back that love in a reciprocating environment, then you can change your destiny. Now, of course, maybe you were born into a certain family where the parents didn't love you. But while you were not being loved, while you were being mistreated, or while you were going through a painful situation, you were learning, if you were aware, of what not to do in your life. And when you got the opportunity to be free to make your own decisions, if you start acting towards somebody understanding the experience you are in, you can change the whole way in which your life has been directed. It is definitely a fact. And to think otherwise would be to negate the capacity of a human being to advance. It is definitely correct to understand that you can influence your life very positively or very negatively, despite the karmic, if there is such, reactions which bring about the so-called good and bad in your life. Because even that which is bad can be good. It just depends on how you look at it. What happened to me, for example, some people think it was very bad. I think it was good. It depends on who's looking at it and what his understanding is when he looks at it. On the absolute scale, that is good which advances you. And there are many, many things which can do that, which even seem to be bad. Is it?
How things happen? I would like to clarify when.
I'm not trying to negate. I'm not trying to negate the concept of the law of karma, because it's just common sense, action and reaction. What I'm trying to negate is the formula of it. You know, I give charity to somebody, I get back more charity later on. This is just business. You see, what I'm trying to do is elevate the human being, the living soul, to the point where he can actually create that goodness by giving that goodness to others, and that the freedom is there to do it. It's not just a business contract. It's not an exchange of goods. It's an exchange of energy which brings about that love and happiness and peace. And I'm sorry.
I just wanted to ask if someone has something to say. What is the procedure? There is a question, then you talk, and then
yeah, there can be a question, and I can. You see, the problem with me is that I got a big mouth, and I can go on blabbing for hours. You know, so what I'll try to do is answer your question. Now, one thing about me is that if I'm in the middle of answering the question and somebody wants to cut me off, I get very upset, because that's just the way I am. I'm a super maha number one, you know, who's got to just, you know. But if it's a kind of a discussion, I can sit back and listen and be like everybody else. But if you want me to answer questions, then I get like that, you know. Now, I don't know what you want to do.
I would like to ask, when you were talking about
just being honest here.
If you said that for a king to punish maybe not the best way to educate his population.
Yes, but I didn't say that it's something he should not do.
No,
because to keep law and order, you may have to punish by jailing somebody. That's another thing, but that's not necessarily the way of education.
Yes, right. So if let's take that the Supreme, or the Lord is he is the supreme king, or the supreme parent, let's say. If you see how, if I understand correct, of course, the way that he introduced the universal laws, how everybody who commits something gets punished ultimately. If he commits something wrong or a sin, let's say, or something, whatever is the meaning of the word, then he definitely will get punished.
Yeah, but it depends on who's punishing, because that punishment may not be seen as a punishment in the strict sense of the word. It may be a lesson which brings somebody to a higher platform. In other words, the Supreme can use that opportunity to justifiably give you a slap in the face, but in such a way that you can develop from it. And that's what makes the difference between the Supreme and everybody else. Because their punishment, their slap in the face, brings you closer. A normal person's punishment of slap in the face may do nothing except make you angry or upset without any understanding of the purpose behind it. Because there's a purpose behind everything. There's nothing that doesn't have a purpose behind it.
Well, let's see. If you commit, let's say, a murder, and then you are punished by a king, you see the connection between what you did and what you got. So
but that doesn't necessarily change you.
Yeah, but there is more chance to make the connection and understand. In God's case, when he punishes, you commit a murder, then you are punished in the future, next lifetime. You have no choice, you have no way to connect your action and the reaction that you got. So what lesson are you going to get?
And maybe that's not what he's doing.
Okay. You think that he's not getting some
I'm not
reaction?
saying like that, but maybe that's not what Krishna's doing. Maybe that's what you're doing. For example, let's say I have the mentality to murder. Yeah? I don't get cured for that mentality in this lifetime. Next lifetime, I've got the same mentality. My mentality doesn't change. You know, in the Bhagavatam it even says, what spring? You know the previous and future springs from the present spring. Yeah? Your existence now is very similar to your existence in the past, and it is very similar to your existence in the future, unless you make major changes. So when you enter into that new lifetime with the same energy, with the same feelings, with the same mentality, then that causes you to be placed in a situation where such mentality is rewarded by opposing factors. In fact, the person whom you have done it to fulfill his desire also gets the opportunity to come and cause you trouble. That reaction makes sense. Not the reaction of some thing from outer space falling on your head. Understand? Let's say I do something wrong, I walk out in the street, a brick hits me on the head. That flew off just from outer space, yeah? That I'm not going to learn anything from. Unless I happen to see it in a particular way, which I can't think of right now, but anyway. But if I caused great trouble to somebody in my previous life, because that person is energy, and I'm energy, the energetic connection between us remains. That energetic connection was created out of the hatred I have towards you for hurting me, or whatever feeling of revenge I wish to take. Therefore, we're bound energetically. Understand? That binding doesn't go away just because you take a new body. That binding remains. And it is that energetic binding between persons which manifests all in different ways, which causes the reaction, because I'm just waiting for my chance to cause you trouble. That's different than a God making you suffer for your sins. This is us creating the situation by which we suffer. Because I'm living, you're living, they're living, all these living beings, we get energetically bound, we cause ourselves all this trouble. Therefore, it's a cycle. If you can just break it by forgiving completely and utterly, you will have no binding to anyone energetically. You have no, when you leave this body, your energy is free. Even in this body, your energy is free. So long as you are attached to getting even in some way or another, your energy is not free. When you leave this body, your energy will go for it. And this situation of energetic linkage is definitely created by the Supreme, because it is all the Supreme's energies. That power to link with others' energies, this is very much Krishna's power. Radha and Krishna's power. This is their power. Because we are their parts. That is the energy. To link. But when you link in this negative way, you get entangled. When you link in a positive way, you also get entangled, but at least it's a good kind of entanglement. Therefore, previously the Vedic direction was detachment, so that you break the linkages. But that is very difficult to do, because detachment doesn't just mean you wear some one cloth and you go in the forest or something like that. It means you factually detach yourself from each and every living entity by that energetic detachment, by knowledge, development of knowledge, and by austerity, which burns off in you that attaching feature to others in that karmic sense that we just described. Yeah. So, when one gives up such feelings of the desire to cause others trouble, to get even, or to get even with the world, or to strike back at the wrongs which were done to me, and you just forgive. Forgiveness is the absolute topmost purifying principle in existence. That is why the Brahmanas, we talk about these things, but we never really understand what they mean. But the Brahmanas are known for forgiveness. Because forgiveness is the number one purifier that exists. You forgive yourself, you forgive everybody else, one by one, systematically. Then you get free. And in that state of freedom, you are free to connect your energy with the Supreme. Your energy is not diverted in a negative way to somebody else. Because whenever you divert your energy in a negative way to somebody else, that much energy is diverted in connection with the Supreme. And that you don't like. Because that doesn't give you bliss when you are in negative connections with others. If it's diverted in a positive way, it's not diverted. It's engaged in a positive way. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? In other words, it's not that there is no karma, it's just that karma is not a business proposition, as some may think. You do good, you get good, you do bad, you do bad, in the sense if I give you money, you give me money, if I can build things, I can become famous, I can become beautiful. Rather, it's a question, it may also be these things, but that's not necessarily a good thing. It's rather just the way in which the relationships build up over time, and the way in which also, factually speaking, the demigods might wish to reward you. Or even just fate, because fate is a very important thing that's far beyond us. Somebody should ask, what is fate? Okay, what is fate? Thank you. Fate is the desire of the higher authorities to make something happen which must happen according to the higher plan. Therefore, just like for example, the Battle of Mahabharata, that was fate. Everything just happened. Nobody could avoid it. Even Dhritarashtra, he said, it's my fate, it has to happen. He knew it was wrong. He knew everything was going on. He said, it's fate, I can't do anything about it. Huh? Wasn't it also, who was that one in the tree? What was his name? Ashwatthama, when he was entering into the camp of the Pandavas at the end to kill them all when they were sleeping. Yeah, he knew it was his fate. I have to go in there. He saw an altar. There was Lord Shiva there. There's the fire there. He had to enter the fire. He was the offering to the fire. He knew he had to go in there and kill everybody. He knew it had to happen, and he had no other choice.
But he was punished later.
He was punished, but he knew that was part of his fate. That was part of fate. No thanks.
But if he knew that it was a fate, how it was possible that he was punished later?
Because he wasn't so seriously punished. Ashwatthama's an immortal, For some time he had some trouble. Haribol. It's a very interesting thing, isn't it? This way of looking at karma, because it's actually quite different. And when you understand it this way, what happens is you start to understand there's a lot more control you have over things than you thought before. Unless, for example, there was some fate involved in everything. Yeah?
Questions arise by the way you're talking.
Why don't you just make it very quick, to the point.
Yeah, I'll try.
In your words.
Yeah, I was reading a few books about one woman, who is living in the deep forest in Russia, in Siberia, in taiga, and like she said, I think she left from the origins, maybe it's Sati Yuga, I don't know, maybe from somewhere else. The family tradition going on, yeah. And she was demonstrating to her friend he was a businessman and she produced a child from him there, and she was demonstrating different kinds of abilities, like for example, know the past completely and totally, and present and future, and she even took him to the other planet and allowed him to see what happened and to do things there. Many interesting things. and you can just look at her. And I just wanted to.
It's a drawing, not a photograph.
Yeah,
A
and
drawing.
I just wanted to ask whatever. 3 books were very nice, and I was very encouraged by reading. And the 4th one was a little embarrassing for me. A few concepts of her about God and about universe and about religion. It was a little embarrassing, and I just wanted to clear it up a little. I just read a few lines from a dialogue which was between her and her friend. She was asking, since you are able very easily to reproduce the scenes of life thousands of years ago, that means you are familiar with all the teachings and treatises, and you will reveal them to humanity. Answer: I know the teachings that encourage people to worship. All of them? Yes. And can you translate all the Vedas? Yes, I can, but this is a waste of time. Question: Don't you want humanity to know the most ancient teachings? Answer: and what's further? What will happen to humanity in the result? Well, it will become wiser. And she says, that's the whole trick of the blacks. She calls black forces blacks. That's the whole trick of the black forces, that behind the multitude of teachings, they try to hide that which is most important. By offering a part of truth just for the mind, they very carefully leading away from the essence. And they told a parable about 2 brothers, one of whom was living just at home and one of whom was going around the world and trying to find the truth is. So, and she says that all the religions we're just a product of some priests who concocted them like that, and that actually the man was created by God in such a way that all the questions on all, like she was later on was talking with her grandfather, which is 119 years old, also has his father also living, and I'll formulate the question right very soon, and he's telling to him, I can conceive how Anastasia is her name, how Anastasia is holding such lots of information in herself. She knows the past, all what happens in the present, and by the way lives in the taiga, in the forest, and rejoices with little flowers, the sun and animals. And he was answering the grandfather, what is there to think of? She feels the information and takes it as much as she needs and whenever she needs it. The answers to all the questions are in the space, near to us. You just have to be able to receive them and to make them hearable or listenable, I don't know. So I think the question is, and she probably rejects all the cults or worship.
What's your question?
The question is, what are the rules for such people who have such abilities to see the past, the present, and future, and to have also Brahminical qualities? I think she's a very nice person.
What she said is true.
Yeah, but
what you quoted there.
It's like she's against.
It's not against. It's kind of it's very much what I'm thinking too.
Yeah.
What it means is that, you know, let's say you translate all the Vedic literatures, right? That's okay, and there's a lot of good in it, but there's also a lot of things in there which are not going to bring people to the proper platform considering our present situations. Yeah? Like a lot of harm can become to people who accept things very blindly, very fanatically in that way. Because these literatures in many, many religions bring people to a point of very strictness. You must do this. If you do this, you're bad. You're condemned. You're going to go to hell. And this is good and this is bad. You know? What I got the mood from her when I heard you speaking this is that it's this judgment all the time. This constantly judging people on the basis of some scripture which is bringing people apart. And actually, it could be black or whatever, you don't want to call black, but forces which are negative, could be pushing forward these things because it's a very good way to drive people apart. Because then you're always judging everybody. Just look in ISKCON, for example. Such high principles, such high shastras, yeah? And people are constantly being driven apart. Constantly. You all have experience of it, being driven further and further apart. It's amazing. The people who are there think they're going to save the world and bring them all together, and yet they're going further and further apart. By the result, you can see that maybe something is going on here which is actually totally different than what you think. You think it's going to be good. The result is it's very bad. The negativity that's created is very bad. Of course, this is a generalization. Some people might say we have a very good relationship. Not that many, but what is most important now, again, is the realization. Is that feeling. Because it is true. All information is in the ether. This is even a Vedic principle called the Akashic records. Akash means the ether. It's the Akashic records. Every sound that's ever been vibrated is in the ether because it's a wave. And that sound in the ether is always there. If you tune to the right frequency, you can pick up that knowledge which was vibrated in the past. So probably that's what it means that she knows things that happened in the past. Because I'm sure she's not aware of them at any particular point in time, of all of them, because you can't do that. That's not possible. But she can tune to a particular type of knowledge, and then get the energy of that knowledge, and then express it. But she says, I'm not trying to defend her or anything, but I'm just trying to explain. She says, what would be the use of that? Why would I do such a thing? What would be the use? And the reason why it would be no use is that has nothing to do with you. You've got to come to your own understanding of it. Therefore, what somebody might say who sees these things is a way to help that person come to their understanding of knowledge in general in a way which is good for them. Not necessarily the same way that was good for people 10,000 years ago. 5,000 years ago, 500 years ago, 100 years ago, or even yesterday.
Yes.
Make sense?
She's very much concerned about how to also spread this message of love, because love is the essence. He also stresses it.
That's all there is.
But then I was thinking, how does she don't know about the message of love of Lord Chaitanya Nityananda brought?
Because it's not Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda's energy is there, and that is what has to be understood. Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda themselves, they are personalities who even, let's say, 100 years after they departed, nobody knew, because it wasn't the personality, the historical personalities, that were so important. It was the energy of love of Godhead, their supreme energy, which they put into the world, which was important, and which is still available today. The point is to tap into it. In that time, it was easy to tap into it, because they were standing there. And when you're standing with a person, you immediately can tap into it, especially if they're so powerful, they force you to do it. Not even force, you want to, you're drawn into it, Whereas if there's so much time and space and distance separating, it's very difficult to tap into that particular form of a particular personality unless you are very connected with them. Therefore, they've left their energy there for everybody. And you can tap into that, just as this lady taps into knowledge.
But if she knows all the past...
I don't know what she knows and doesn't know, neither can I say, but we're just talking here about the principle, which is a very valid principle.
Can we say that before appearance of Lord Chaitanya, this energy of love of Godhead was not available?
It was available, but not in the same way, because it was Madhavendra Puri who brought this Radha Krishna worship together. Yeah? Formerly there was Lakshmi and Narayan. That's also good, but it's not as complete. Doesn't have the same taste. It doesn't have the same power, and it doesn't have the same relevance to people as today. because of the awe and reverence. Awe and reverence is diminishing rapidly. But pure love, on an equal level, is not possible with Lakshmi Narayan. And that Madhavendra Puri brought. People nowadays want that kind of love, because that's where advancement of consciousness is heading. That's where the advancement of consciousness is heading. That's another subject I could talk on for a long time, but the heading towards the awe and reverence that's going away. See, the awe and reverence is also part and parcel of the religions that have been there for so long, But the awe and reverence, people are not, they rebel against it, you see. And neither can they develop love for that personality who they are in awe and reverence of. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya's mission was not Lakshmi Narayan worship. Previous to that, it was like that. But Madhavendra Puri introduced in himself and to a few others, Lord Chaitanya manifested it and gave that energy to the world, where you can actually have that love on an equal level, or a reciprocation on that level, which is not contradictory to the modern man as in human beings, feeling.
Can we say that in that sense, people of Kali Yuga are more lucky, like we used to say?
No, not particularly. Previously they also understood these things, but in a different way. There was always somebody who understood these things. You cannot hide, on the heavenly planets they've understood these things. But it was Lord Chaitanya who gave it to them, clearly. Because previously, you may have understood intellectually or something, but that feeling of energetic exchange may not have been there. I don't know, I wasn't there, or maybe I was, but I don't remember right now. But when you get that connection of feeling, it's very much more vivid to you. Vivid, real, vibrant, alive, a living thing.
What I need to say is that the power...
Don't raise your hand, it's not a class, just say something.
The power or the method of bringing the love, which maybe not Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda brought, but what they are the examples of this love. And they demonstrate, especially Lord Nityananda demonstrates his love to us or to all the living entities. And I think if somebody really just get the information about what he feels and how he acts, he cannot be callous or
Cannot be
callous or how we call that.
Yeah.
I mean, if she is really interested, and she is interested in the saving people or to giving them love, which saves people, maybe she also had to know about such oceans of love which Lord Nityananda is, or he brought.
If you are in connection with that love, you don't need to know about any other ocean of love.
Oh, really?
Love is love. It's not like Lord Nityananda's love is different than other love. If you're in connection with spiritual love, that's it. It's not like...
But she's advising, I see, she's advising all the people just have their own homes, their own lands, and all the things growing there, and cultivating all the, cultures, and
that's okay.
And expressing their love to the earth or to the soil, and
that's fine.
Yeah, and that's the way, she says, for people to develop the love and to contact with God, and she sees this as the most acceptable or the way for all the people.
That's okay.
And okay.
But if she wants to stop somebody else from doing something else, but then it's okay. Everybody has the right to say, I think this is the most acceptable thing.
Well, probably it is the most acceptable nowadays, but when...
It might be the best, but it's not going to happen. Not soon. But it might be the best thing. I personally would love to live on the land and take care of some nice plants and have trees that I can go talk to and stuff like that. Sure. I don't like living in the city. Yeah. But everybody else is in the city, so I come here now and then.
I would like to ask,
If I'm afraid to lose the person after my death, whom I love, is it maybe wrong for me because of you spoke about this connection?
If you love a person, if the other person loves you, you'll connect again.
Yes. Okay.
It'll just happen.
Tendra, and also one other devotee asked me to ask this question from you. Also, I feel it like my question. So the question is, what is the connection between two kinds of endeavors, like endeavor to humility, which is very described in Vaishnava literature, like Sharanagati, and endeavor to to self-esteem, which is now part of New Age philosophy and
self-esteem?
Yeah, I mean to esteem you as a person. I mean to develop a self-esteem.
Self-esteem.
Yeah.
If you really develop, I don't know if esteem is the right word, but if you really develop confidence in yourself, or rather love for yourself, and you get really into it on the most spiritual level, but yourself is nothing but a part of the Lord. You're non-different. When you can love yourself, you can love them. Just as when you tune the radio to the right frequency of the antenna, the station puts out the frequency, the antenna receives it, you tune your radio, you pick it up. Because all these circuits are compatible to receiving such energy. Huh?
Resonance is such word in English.
In the same way,
They vibrate on the same frequency. I mean,
frequency, yeah.
When it is increasing.
What?
When the
Frequency increasing when there are two same.
when the same frequency is there, then the amplitude is increasing or something.
No, not in the radio. But if you have that quality of the Supreme in your heart, which you are, then when you come in contact with yourself, which is after all, when you speak about the self, that's what you're speaking about, then you can therefore come in contact with the Supreme. So words such as self-esteem may be misunderstood to be something puffed up, that, I'm very great, but I don't think that's what is meant. Or even if it is meant, maybe it's a mistake on the part of a particular person who said it, but the real important thing is to come in contact with yourself, and through that contact, come in contact with the Supreme or other living beings. You see? So there's nothing wrong with that. Anything that brings you to yourself is good, even if it means understanding yourself to be something great. There's nothing wrong with that. You are great. But not that you understand it to be something you're not. That doesn't mean you have to think yourself small. But if you think yourself as that great thing when you're actually that great thing, that's a mistake. But you are something great, sure. There's nothing wrong with it. You don't have to think yourself bad. You don't have to think yourself wrong and guilty and small and miserable and rotten and horrible. And you don't have to think like that. But then again, if you walk around all day thinking how great you are, that's also not the point. The point is to understand what you are. And that is something great. Therefore, self-esteem might mean that.
Humility, like it is manifested by Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Sharanagati prayers. Is it just the last stage of surrendering process which comes automatically later on?
Humility.
Yeah, humility.
Humility is a natural quality of anyone who understands that he's no better than anyone else. We're all great. One thinks himself proud and puffed up when he thinks he's better than someone else. Because otherwise, if you're not better than anyone else, how can you be proud and puffed up? But if you understand that you're equal to everyone else, then naturally you'll be friendly with others and not try to dominate others, which is the natural symptom of humility. It's not actually so advanced. It's just a simple point.
but it's last sixth point of Sharanagati.
I don't know what he meant by that, but that was my explanation. Certainly, when you really want to surrender, of course you have to be humble, but humility simply means you understand what you are in relation to others.
Isn't it something which will come naturally?
It's a quality of the mode of goodness.
Yeah, it's not, if somebody trying to do it artificially, like the devotees are trying to do.
Artificially it doesn't happen, no. It has to be realized. Because if you artificially are humble, that really means you're repressing the fact that you think you're great. And that comes out later on, when you have an argument with somebody or when you become a boss of somebody, But if you actually have that feeling of understanding of yourself, then natural humility is a natural, it progresses or it manifests naturally, because you don't try to dominate or exploit others on the basis of your so-called being better, because you know you're not. You know this saying, there by the grace of God go I. There, but for the grace of God go I. It means that person's having this problem, but if it wasn't for the grace of God, I would be in the same position. Yeah? So when you see like that, you don't ever get into the position of trying to dominate others in that sense. You didn't understand. It's a very special way of saying it. There, but for the grace of God, go I. It means that I will.
If we accept that worshipping of Lakshmi Narayana is not relevant nowadays.
I didn't say it wasn't relevant. I don't say things are not relevant. Everything is relevant to certain persons. But you have to understand how to get to that point of relevance, because it may not be relevant to you. I think it would be a mistake to say you shouldn't feel like that. You shouldn't have any relationship like that. You shouldn't, because for particular people it might be very good. For me personally, it's not something I would endeavor for. But somebody else it might be. What's wrong with that? You should just be what you are.
If somebody worshipping any kind of deity, but he has no real realization of real qualities, energy, qualities for example, he doesn't understand that this person is not ordinary person. He just worshipping like a deity, but he have no real understanding that he is God. Then is it any use of this worship? It is not idol worshipping or something like that?
Any use? Do you mean we should now judge and condemn the person's activities of worship because he doesn't have realization?
No, I just want to know it is the...
He's asking the benefits, if someone gets any benefit from that.
I know, but you said it in another way. Okay, that's another question. What would be the benefit? It depends. Maybe you have to go through such kind of lifeless worship for many years before you realize you're doing something wrong, and then you make another change, and then maybe one day you'll realize that it wasn't lifeless. You were lifeless. They weren't lifeless. You were lifeless. And when you realize that you were lifeless and you develop your life, then you'll be able to understand how they already were there, full of life, long before. It's the same question as, why didn't I leave this con, 15 years ago, right? Or whatever. It's not that doing something which is not necessarily good is bad. It may be just something you have to go through to come to a point which is better. Maybe you worship those deities as lifeless forms, and maybe one day you wake up. Maybe one day you stop doing it and do something else, and then wake up, and then come back to doing it. Or maybe you won't do it. I just wouldn't tell people, everybody must worship deities. You must have deities. I wouldn't start like that.
Yeah.
But if somebody's already doing it, that's his situation. But I wouldn't tell somebody to do it or not do it. But I would educate them as to what it was if they wanted to do it. If they wanted to do it, I would tell them what it was they were doing and what it was they should try to create, what kind of connection they should try to create with their deities. And that would actually be the main point of doing it. And if later on they decided, well, they can't do it or don't want to do it or something else, then that's also okay. But I wouldn't tell them to do it in the beginning.
Another question, but maybe later.
Go ahead.
The idea was that maybe there must, it not must, but it is better to develop another kind of practice when you are coming to understanding what you are doing, and then do it's more relevant.
You're talking about like doing sadhana, yeah?
No, sadhana.
Can you say it again? I didn't understand.
For example, if somebody don't understand whom he is worshipping,
Yeah.
then it is better to do something to understand. For example, some people...
What do you mean, is it better? In other words, are you saying that, let's say this person over there is worshipping some deity, has no idea what he's doing.
Yeah, he does.
Is it better that we, who are outside, try to educate the person?
No, I am saying...
Or is it better that the person should try to find out?
Yeah, it is better that he is educated, or somehow or other, I don't know.
Well, you're either educated by yourself or by outside. There's
Yeah.
no other third choice, so...
Yeah, he is free. He have his free choice. He can be educated. But if it is going in this way, for example, what is the question? That in Vedic literature there was the process. They are coming through the Brahman realization, and then they are saying that the para-Brahman is Lord, and then people will have a real understanding what is Lord, and when they are worshipping Lord, then they will worship the real person with the qualities which he have.
Everybody's got a big question mark over
Now,
there.
why I'm saying? Because somebody will think that Lord is an ordinary person with ordinary limits, you know.
And he means to say, that if a person comes to the understanding of a personality of God by gradual development through Brahman realization, when he really understands that the Lord, the great qualities of the Lord, while the other person has just heard that there is God, and they accept somehow that there is God and they worship Him without experiencing his Brahman qualities, then that worship is completely different from the realized worship of someone who understood the greatness before he came to the personal worship understanding.
Yeah, so?
This was the real question. Why
Well, I don't understand the question.
The question was that it is any use, previously I thought, that if he is worshipping without understanding.
Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, let not the wise disturb the minds of the ignorant.
Yeah, no, it is not a question that we are going to introduce, just a question to know for us.
But Krishna said that, and the reason he said it is leave people alone.
It's okay. We can leave that.
If I start judging them now, then that's the judgment. Understand?
Yeah.
It's just a question. It's just my question. Is this bad or is that good? And then I say, oh, I don't want to judge it. You say, but I'm not trying to judge. I just want to know whether it's bad or good.
I know it's not so.
But that's my answer. I don't think it's necessary to bring up a philosophical point like that. What would be better, this or that, or why? That's just my particular way of looking at this. I don't see why I should judge it. Why should I judge it? What would be the point of doing it? Like this lady said, what would be the point of doing it? What would I gain from it? What would you gain from it? What would people gain from it?
Yeah, for that point, of course, it is not so important. But for me, for example, I am doing something and I want to do what should I do?
That's another point.
Yeah,
Why don't you ask that?
Yeah, that and then, but it is not for me because.
Then don't ask it.
For the benefit of others, the opportunity to ask questions for the benefit of others.
Well, you know, I think Arjuna asked questions for the benefit of himself. I don't really believe that Arjuna interrupted the whole battle of Kurukshetra to go out in the middle of the battlefield and sit down crying and throw his bow in the ground just to ask questions for the benefit of other people. He could have done that before the battle of Kurukshetra, you know? When he did it in the middle of the battlefield of Kurukshetra, it's because it was for himself. And, by the way, for everybody else. I don't think Arjuna was thinking about anyone else in the world except himself when he was at the battle at that point. You know, to say that Arjuna simply did it for the benefit of others is ridiculous.
The point to do something.
There are many places where somebody who is asked a question, he praised somebody who asked a question. So this question will benefit people in general.
That's okay. That's from the point of view of a teacher.
Yeah.
And that's only when that question is being recorded for the sake of others. That's why I didn't answer his question. Got it? Because this is being recorded and I don't want to judge that personality who might be relevant to his question. Although he's saying it, I'm not trying to judge or talk about anybody, it's just a theoretical question. But there are people out there who are doing that theoretical thing that he's talking about. Therefore, I refuse to be trapped into the situation where I'm going to pass judgment on such persons. Understand? Thank you.
I have many questions about worshipping of demigods. Maybe you just say something about this point. For example, in Ishopanishad, there is a translation in Russian. I didn't read English translation, but it is said in Russian that those who worship demigods will enter the darkest regions of ignorance.
Look, it's like this. If you think, for example, that this particular demigod is the supreme, and you know, I'm just worshiping that personality, or maybe he's not supreme, I don't even know who he is, he's just some rich guy or whatever, who I'll just worship him and he'll give me some benefits.
So is it proper translation or not?
I don't know what the Russian translation is, so.
So the worshipping of demigods, those who worship demigods will enter the darkest regions of ignorance.
I'm explaining that. The point is that that if you're doing it in the sense of exploiting the demigod, yeah? I'm just going to get out of the demigod something. I worship you to get, huh? Just like Vrikasura, right? Worshipped Lord Shiva to get the benediction to crack anybody's head that he touched. This is deep ignorance. It's exploitation. Just like if you were to go to somebody and be very humble and worship, and then at the end say, okay, here's my bill. Right? That's basically what's going on. I do something for you, at the end, you pay me. That is ignorance. Because it's ignorant of the fact of the needs or of the position of the person you're doing it to. In the sense that, let's say I do that, I say, okay, it's free to a powerful man, and then at the end I say, here's my bill. But because that person's more powerful than me, I'm going to suffer because of it. You see? Because I'm cheating that personality who's stronger than me. That's cheating. Well, it's like a business. So, if you're doing business with the demigods, if it's some exploitation involved, which is generally what it means. I mean, even worshippers of goddess Kali, you know, they used to say, "Oh God, oh Mother, give me fame, give me wife, give me wealth, give me this and that." There's a joke in Bengal. Goddess Kali once said, "Okay, listen, I'm full of flies in this altar. They're all over me." And then the worshipper says, "Well, Goddess Kali, you're so powerful, you can get rid of the flies yourself." That's specifically the disease of an exploiter. An exploiter just simply for himself, doesn't care about others. Now, if you just consider what the demigods are, yeah? Demigods are the personalities who are taking care of this universe. They are very powerful. They're taking care of all the things that take place in this universe. Not only that, they have seen Vishnu, they've talked with Vishnu, they serve Vishnu all the time. They came here to this planet to be with Lord Chaitanya in his pastimes. They took birth when Krishna appeared. They took birth when Lord Chaitanya appeared. They were running around Lord Chaitanya's house when he was a child. They were chanting Hare Krishna and fainting in ecstasy. You're not talking here about ordinary people. You're talking about supremely wonderful people, you know? I mean very wonderful people. And in the Vedas are actually hymns to various demigods. And all the Vedic, just like the Indra is the whole point of the Veda, of part of the Vedas, you know? All the offerings are to Indra. And you've got all these offerings to the fire god. You've got all these mantras to the different demigods. That's the Vedic culture. That's why scholars laugh at people who claim to be followers of the Vedic culture and they reject demigods. It's like, you know, where are they coming from? You know, because the whole Veda is full of worship of the demigods. So what are they talking about? You know. So what happened? What happened to the demigods? How did they get pushed out of the way? And then how did all these ordinary people who are human beings get pushed up to the level of demigods? You don't want to worship demigods. That's evil. But an ordinary person, a human being, that's what we call ordinary people, are being worshipped on the level of demigods. But demigods are being pushed away as kanishta or saguna bhaktas, simply materialistic devotees. It makes one wonder what's going on here. So when you do a worship of a demigod, you do it in their capacity as a servant of the Lord. There's nothing wrong with that. For example, if you offer food to Radha and Krishna and Gaura Nitai, to take that prasadam and offer to demigods who may happen to be there, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it whatsoever. It is the Vedic culture. If you appreciate them for what they are doing, the wonderful things they're doing in this universe, if you appreciate them, if you respect them, if you work with them as their servants, there's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't mean you're less of a Vaishnava. What it does mean, though, is that you're intelligent. Worshipping them, I'm not sure what you mean by worship. But what I mean is you respect, you appreciate, you serve. You can even love them if you have such a personal relationship. There's nothing wrong with that. And you offer them the prasadam of the Lord. What's the problem? And if they're hungry, you feed them. What's the problem? If I can feed you if you're hungry, why can't I feed a demigod? Is there something wrong with it? Well, what is the problem? If I offer a gift to somebody who's offering gifts to everybody, what's wrong with that? It's so prejudiced to say, oh, well, you know, I can give a gift to my guru, but I can't give a gift to a demigod. I can worship my guru, but I can't worship a demigod. You think your guru is more connected to Radha and Krishna than the demigods? For example, you think your guru is more connected to Radha Krishna than Lord Shiva? For example, just, you know, a little example. Do you really think that? And do you think making an offering to Lord Shiva, or for example, King Indra, or Varuna, or Agni, or Yamaraj, is somehow wrong? And offering to your guru is somehow wonderful and beautiful, and that's Vaishnava, and this is not Vaishnava? Just because he's a demigod? And what if your guru becomes a demigod next lifetime? Do you kick him in the teeth? Eternal relationship? Now he's a demigod. He's one of the bad guys. Can't worship him anymore. Isn't it weird? Isn't there something deeply weird about it? Yeah, it's deeply weird. Therefore, if you do things with understanding, you can do these things. And Krishna says in the 4th chapter, you offer, you do sacrifice for the demigods give you everything in return. Isn't that? Yajna is the 3rd chapter? Sorry, it's been a long time, I haven't. So you offer everything to them, they offer everything to you in return. It's a reciprocating relationship. There's nothing wrong with it. If you worship them as the supreme, that's your problem, not their problem. They're not stupid enough to think that they're the supreme just because you worship them as the supreme. But maybe you'll make advancement and change too.
But can we say that the best situation of material prosperity nowadays is due to neglecting of demigods?
I think it's due to the fact that people are degrading. And that may also be due to the fact they're unaware of the higher energies, they're unaware of themselves, they're unaware of the Supreme. You know, sometimes people, they just go to the Supreme and they forget about everybody else.
But can we say that if people...
And therefore, because they forget about everybody else, they exploit. And when they're exploiting, everything goes down.
But if we say that if people will develop their good qualities without understanding of existence of demigods...
But if they develop their good qualities, that's automatically the mode of goodness, automatically knowledge will manifest. It doesn't matter whether they
and
understand.
material prosperity will also come.
It's not a business arrangement, you know.
But somehow people are suffering.
But if you're in the mode of goodness, you're not suffering. Doesn't matter whether you have material prosperity or not. You can live in the forest like this lady, taking care of flowers. That's not material prosperity, but that brings happiness and knowledge. Contaminated materialist.
Yeah.
Yes, I've caught you. Isn't it? I worship demigods to get money and prosperity. That is what is not right. That is the mistake. That is what is condemned. That is exploitation.
But somehow I see around me that if people get some good abilities in life, material prosperity, I see that most of them more in a mode of goodness than others who are very poor. It's my experience.
I don't know if you've had experience talking to all kinds of poor people in different places, but some of them are quite nice. But maybe there's a relationship between being in the mode of goodness and having the knowledge of how to make money and come out of the poor position. Yes, that's also a possibility. But there's not necessarily a direct connection between wealth and the mode of goodness. Brahmanas have no wealth.
Because in ISKCON I used to think that all rich people are very bad. But now I have many connections with rich people due to my business. And I see that many of them are very good people.
Yes, because there is a connection between knowledge and the mode of goodness. And knowledge also includes how to make money. Nothing wrong with that. But that doesn't mean that if you don't have money, you don't have knowledge. Or that if you don't have money, you don't know how to make money either. Because there are some people who aren't interested in being rich. There's one devotee I've been communicating with in Finland. He was offered a very big job by the government. He said, no, I'm going to stay as a cleaner. I work when I want, a few hours a day. I make enough money to live, and I don't have to bother with all these things. He has the knowledge, he has the ability, but he didn't choose to take that path. There's not necessarily a connection there. It depends on the persons.
What would be the reasons for that woman to not be aware of all the demigods? Because her perception of the universe is very interesting. She sees the universe as all the substance, or beings in the universe as the substances which were present when Earth and the humanity was created by God. And then they were delighted by that, and then she felt some envy, and then she tried to create something like Earth and like man to reproduce each other, or to reproduce.
Sometimes people, when they're in contact with that kind of energy, they speak energetically, allegorically, according to the energy they feel. They understand things, and when they describe them, it's not the same way that somebody else might describe it. And it's just as a valid way of perceiving as any other way. But for somebody to say she understands everything about everything everywhere, that doesn't work. Maybe because she doesn't understand everything everywhere at all times, she could make such a statement. But Krishna says, I understand everything. Yeah. Now, it's not, you shouldn't even worry about such a thing. It's just her way of perceiving it. And it's just as relevant as anybody else's way of perceiving it, because you can take from it for yourself a means by which you may also perceive. After all, what's the use of just hearing all the time? You should also perceive. Isn't that the whole point? Direct perception?
Yeah.
Pratyaksha-avagamam. You should have direct perception. Direct perception, that's the point. Not just hearing all the time. So you can hear this, you can hear this, you can hear that, but always don't take it as absolute and stop thinking and stop developing. Hear, learn, use it, grow, and come to a higher position and directly perceive yourself.
Also, a very interesting feeling I got when I started reading a few days ago Bhagavad Gita. When Krishna is saying some verses, I don't know, sounded a little strange to my ear after all this information I got from
It might be a very bad translation. You know, you have to understand.
English.
There may be very bad translations. There are problems.
Anyway, but all the instructions about like, do thou fight for the sake of fighting and don't care about results, they are not yours, or everything like this. What
That means detachment.
meaning, yeah, I don't know, what meaning do this have for us right now, nowadays?
Therefore, I say that instructions given 5,000 years ago, discussions given 5,000 years ago, are not 100% relevant in the sense that every single thing said is something I should put into my life. I'm not on the battlefield. Arjuna was. It doesn't mean that the experience Arjuna had was any less relevant. But the essence of what Krishna is saying is relevant. And that we have to take. But the essence is there in other literatures, other knowledge. That essence is there when you know how to take the essence. But if you always stick yourself into one specific way of doing it, you get in trouble, especially if you're not exactly sure if the translation is exactly correct or not.
So what is the essence? What could be the essence of those instructions?
I'll just fight for the sake of fighting?
Yeah.
I told you, it's detachment. Arjuna was put into that situation because he was a warrior. It was a political situation. It was his duty to fight because he was a warrior and there was a war going on. And Krishna said, do it without attachment. Don't worry whether you win or lose. The results are not in your hands because you're not the supreme. That's the essence. The essence is detachment. Working out of your duty in the proper way. Whatever happens, good or bad, it's what's going to happen. It's what's supposed to happen. There's nothing wrong with that.
I was also wanted to ask about...
But you know, Krishna qualified that later on by telling Arjuna, this battle's already over. Everybody's already killed. Now you get the credit because I want it to be so. It's not that Krishna just left Arjuna hanging there by just doing his duty and going out and getting his head chopped off. Krishna was, it's not like Krishna in every single verse gives everything. He's leading Arjuna up to an understanding. And that understanding was very clear. You're going to win because I arranged it. You choose. You want to be my agent? Go and do it. You don't want to be my agent? Do something else. Simple. And when you are my agent, don't ruin things by being attached while you're doing it. Be detached and just depend on me. It'll all happen because you are my agent.
I was also wanted to ask about the wonderful Louise Hay conception. I got very many times encouraged by her in excellent way, like no one else could do. So
you mean Louise Hay?
Louise Hay, yeah.
Yeah, I thought you said Louis.
She was. Her conception is like she proposes to the people to approve themselves in everything. She says, you get something in yourself, some qualities. You acknowledge them, accept them, and don't feel guilty, don't feel anything. I don't know if somebody may found himself in a rather sinful condition when he's doing many sinful things or improper, which is not in harmony with the universe, then what is the way for, or...
But if somebody is reading the books of this lady,
yeah,
it's because they're searching for betterment.
Yeah.
Such a person is not somebody who'll just go out and kill without guilt. And neither is she just addressing such a person. What she is saying is she's addressing the fact that guilt does not make things better. If you commit sin and feel guilty, it doesn't make it better. And it doesn't free yourself from the sin. Feeling guilty doesn't do anything except make things worse. So what she's saying is, you're sick, you got to get better. You're not going to get better by feeling guilty. So get rid of the guilt. It'll help you get better.
Clarify the question about so-called fallen of jiva. Fallen.
Somebody asked me that just the other day, it's not about a month ago or something. I personally don't care about that question, because it's like a question that came up because people like to agitate. It's like an agitating question, and we can fight with each other and we can discuss it and we can say this one, that one, quote this one, quote that one. But I have my opinion. I've always had my opinion. Nobody ever liked my opinion when I really gave it. I remember once I told Atma Tattva in Mayapur, that Indian devotee, and he just looked at me and walked away. What I said at that time was, I said that I don't believe that anyone can fall from the spiritual sky, because it's contradictory to the concept of the spiritual sky. Yeah? That when you're there, you're there because of knowledge. You're not going to make that mistake of whatever it is to leave there, unless you want to leave there to learn something. I don't believe that anybody's above learning. But if you've got that knowledge, why would you want to learn it here? Maybe you might. I don't know. That possibility is there. But as far as I see it, it makes more sense to think of it like this, that souls are constantly emanating from the Supreme, because His energy is constantly expanding. And when they emanate, they make a choice. Because when they are within the Lord, there's no capacity to make free choice, because they're within the body of God. In that condition, you cannot make choices. You can't decide, well, I'm going to go over to the thumbnail. You're where you are. That's it, you're stuck. But you don't mind being stuck, because you're perfectly satisfied in that situation. But when you emanate from the Lord, all of a sudden, you are no longer bound, so to speak, because it's not really binding, but you're no longer in that unification with the body of the Supreme. Now, you have the possibility to do something. And at that point, you make a choice. It doesn't have to be immediate. It can be whenever it wants to be. But you have the possibility to make choices. I want to do this, I want to do that. And because you're not different from God, that choice will manifest, because you're spiritual. And spiritual energy has the possibility to act on choices. Therefore, if you want, you can go there. If you want, you can go there. You can go where you want, do what you want.
If we don't know about material or spiritual wealth, how can we make choice?
Because you don't have to know. You just have that feeling. I like that energy over there. I like that energy over there. It's again energy. You're a spiritual energy. There's energy. And you're attracted to it. You go to it. I like that energy. I'm going to go to that energy. You don't have knowledge. You don't sit there and start making a decision. You don't think. You just feel that pure feeling, which is consciousness, that spiritual energy. You're attracted to some place. Now, you may even be attracted to what we call here the material world because of a particular energy of the Lord which you like. And later on you might get entangled in some other energy which might not be as pure. Or you might be attracted to more pure energy. And in this way, you make the choice by choosing how your energy will flow, to what you are attracted to. You go to what you are attracted to. What is the attraction? The attraction is the feeling of the energy. You are attracted by the energy. We were just talking about this, me and Kamala, the other day, about beautiful women. Yeah? Now, some women are beautiful physically, but they're not attractive. I don't know if you have an experience like this. I'm talking from a man's point of view, of course. Women also have the same understanding for men or also for women. Everybody looks at women, even women. So now, you may say, this person looks very nice, but they're not attractive. Physically, they may be very nice, but they're not attractive. Another person may not be physically as beautiful, but they're very attractive. So what is it that's this attraction? And in fact, people go after attraction, not necessarily what you call beauty, because everybody has a different conception of beauty. What may be beautiful to you is not beautiful to me. In some cultures, it is totally it's completely normal and beautiful when the women have very hairy legs, like in certain countries in South America. That is the standard of beauty. And if the woman shaves her legs, they think, it's like a dog with no hair, you know. They think, what is this weirdness? I'm not joking, this is a real cultural fact. In some cultures, women with very large rear ends are considered very beautiful. Even in the turn of the century, the women who were glorified were women with very broad hips. It's only recently that the skinny, anorexic women who are beauty models are considered the standard of beauty. Previously, it was the broad, like this, you know. So what is beauty in one eye, at one place, in one circumstance, is not always the same. But what is attractive is the person's energy. Understand? And that attraction supersedes all the knowledge, all the sensual perceptions, everything. Yeah? And that is, I feel, personally, this is my personal conviction in the thing. I don't care if you believe it or not. I don't even care if it's right or wrong, because I wouldn't know. No one would know, because we don't have any answers. But my personal understanding of the thing is that when you emanate from the Lord, your energy, the energy, yeah, feels an attraction somewhere. Now, you may not feel that attraction immediately. You may just stay where you are. Or you may be anywhere. It doesn't matter. But when you feel a particular attraction to flow in a particular direction, you do that. And where you end up, that's history. And that's how people, living entities, end up in different places. Because if you say you fall from the spiritual sky, then can you imagine, if you believe that, what is it, 1/4 or 1/3, I forgot the number now, of the living entities are in the material world and the rest are in the spiritual world, yeah? 3/4, there, 1/4 here. Now can you imagine if you had a temple of, 1,000 people and one day 250 of them disappeared? Would you think something about it? Wouldn't it disturb you? Can you imagine, Krishna's engaged in a rasa dance, and 1/4 of the gopis disappeared? Everybody thinks they're a gopi. Everybody in ISKCON is convinced they're a gopi, because that's the top, right? You got to be the top. Whatever's the top, you got to be. Doesn't matter whether you are or not, that means nothing. You've got to be a gopi because the gopi's the top. That means all these gopis fell from the spiritual sky, because you can't change your rasa. You got to be what you are, right? So you were a gopi, because you are a gopi now, you're going to be a gopi, you were a gopi. All these gopis fell. Isn't that weird? 1/4 of the gopis, boop. And the gopis, they're glorified because they have no other consideration than Krishna. And why in heaven's name are they going to come here and be a truck driver? It's an insult to the gopis. Sorry. It doesn't happen. And to say that you have no choice, you didn't fall, God put you here, means that Krishna's a fascist. He just took 1/4 of the living entities and said, become dull stone. I don't believe that either. Therefore, I feel you emanate from the Lord, and as we always say, you've got free choice. Your energy goes where it makes sense to you to go. And you're here, and that's it. That's my very extremely radical point of view, and it always has been my extremely radical point of view. And it's the point of view that Atma Tattva looked at me and said, what? What can I do? That's how I feel. I can't accept these other propositions. And since it's not stated anywhere, what do I care? I don't have any problem.
It's supposed to be some Jiva Goswami's writings stated
That what?
that nobody falls.
Yeah, Jiva Goswami said that, yeah. But, then the Sanskrit scholars will debate for 10 years what this means. And,
So you don't think that the Lord is placing the living entities in certain circumstances for him to develop or grow? You think always that the living entity is himself choosing the circumstances?
No, well, I didn't say that. Are you making a...
I'm just asking.
That's a separate question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you said
I think that, yes, Krishna does place living entities for their growth. But that the living entities and the Lord are in a reciprocating agreement, shall we say. It's a mutual agreement that I will learn like this. Kind of like when you go to college and you pick your courses. But in the sense that it's not done like so officially, but it's something that flows, you know? You know, people don't understand, but the Lord is always there in your heart. And the things that you're thinking, or doing, or whatever, He's actually helping you to go in that direction. It's not that, you know, just because you're a dull, ignorant person, that the Lord is not directing in there. Because if Krishna can, in the heart of a snake, tell a snake to get out of the cave of Haridas Thakur, why can't He tell a truck driver or a garbage man? And He does. It's just that the snake thought, well, I gotta go. Time to go. Eat a mouse. The snake isn't aware, oh, this Paramatma in my heart tells me to get out of here so I don't bother the Haridas Thakur. The snake's thinking, mouse, okay. You know? In this way, it's kind of like a constant reciprocation, knowingly or unknowingly, but it's always going on. An energetic question means one that's very... a question about energy, that's something else.
Very conscious that the highest chakra and the lowest chakra are meant to accept, because the highest chakra is the pure energy from the sky, and the lowest chakra pure energy from the
Earth.
And this is what they accept. And then the second chakra.
Were you here last time when I taught that very thing?
No.
I taught everybody how to receive that energy. Go ahead.
So I listened to it.
Okay.
So the second chakra should be connected in circle with the sixth chakra, and then the third chakra should be connected in circle with fifth chakra. Like usually, and you don't use them for influencing people or something, because they are meant for exchange, energetical exchange between people. And then the middle chakra, which is like heart chakra, remains as it is. And is it so that on energetical level, then, so to speak, the best position of human being is to accept freely the energy from the sky and the energy from the earth, and to change
recirculate it.
Not only that, but to change it into the energy of the heart, into the energy of the love. And this is what the human beings are meant for. Is it so?
Well, that's terribly simplistic.
I mean, just on an energetic level.
It's terribly simplistic. I wouldn't even attempt to try to elaborate on that point because it's too simplistic. I mean, you cannot say that, you know, chakras are meant to have connections like that, because it would make a loop, you know, within yourself. Maybe some yogic process might require or request such a practice for like an exercise, because it's a way to help purify. I wouldn't even agree that's the best way to do it, but that is a way. But that's my personal opinion. But I would say that the energy that we can receive from above and below, the energy from above is to help us open up ourselves to the energy of knowledge, of beauty, of love, of power that is there in the universe, which can make us very wonderful persons, which we really are. The energy from below can give us the strength and capacity to do that with the proper energy and strength that we require. And when they meet in the heart, and you can also help utilize that energy for good things, then when you have that love, because love is not something you bring in, it's something that's there within you, yeah, then those powers can help you manifest that love in a very nice way.
So they're like carriers, maybe they're like
What?
carriers. Carriers.
What's a carrier?
The energy is like a carrier, this energy which comes from up and from down and top is like a
well,
carrier
that's kind of an
love.
impersonal way of saying it. I would, and also feeling it. I would say if you want to talk about a carrier, energy being a carrier, then you're thinking that the energy is like a truck. Energy is not like a truck. Energy is a flow. It's not a thing which goes from here to there and stops. Yeah, it's not a carrier. It's a constant flow. And when you're connecting, for example, you use the word love, then I would say that love comes from Radha and Krishna and manifests through all the living entities, even in the hierarchical realm of the demigods and everything. It's always flowing through. It's always flowing there. And it's not a carrier. It is.
So maybe is it
There's a difference between being a carrier and being the substance. A carrier carries a substance, but the energy is a substance in itself. It doesn't need to be carried. It's just flowing. You just have to receive it and use it.
Can we say that then if the energy is already this love from Krishna and Radha, can we say that this energy from top is like, the energy of Krishna, which is like yang energy, kind of energy, and energy from bottom is, from the earth is like energy from Radha, which is, the material nature is like expansion of Radha or something.
No.
And then they meet in the heart, and then it is
No.
love as it is. No. Too simple.
I wouldn't say that. You can say it, of course. Maybe somebody would listen to it, I don't know. But I definitely wouldn't say it. Me personally, I would never say such a thing. If I were to speak about the spiritual energy from Radha and Krishna, I would say that is possible to receive anywhere. Anywhere at any time, according to your desire to tap into that energy. But basically, I wish to receive it in the heart, but I may also receive it anywhere. Depends. Sometimes they just blow you over with their love in all levels. If I'm specifically speaking about opening up to the celestial realm, then I would think of the energy coming from the level of the celestial realm. And if I'm thinking of below, I would thinking of Mother Earth, giving that energy. I would not, just like when, it's like an insult to Mother Earth or to celestial beings, Just like they said to me when I said that, I reject the concept that everything I have came from a certain personality. And they say, he gave you everything. You're nothing. You're just a tool. So similarly, with the same mentality, you can tell Mother Earth, you're just a tool, Everything's coming from Radharani. You're just a tool here. You're meaningless. Or I could tell the demigods, you're just all tools here, You're just bringing the energy that came from Radha and Krishna. You don't have any meaning. You're nothing. It's such an insult, It's such a ignorance. Because if that's a conception that I'm an empty shell, I'm an empty cup, and I get filled up by somebody else. But that is as impersonal philosophy as you can get. I am a part of God. I am non-different. I have the energy of Radha and Krishna. I don't need to get it from somewhere. I got it. It's me. It's you. It's you. We got it already. We don't get it. What we do get, maybe, is the possibility to connect to it. But we don't get it. I'm not nothing if somebody doesn't fill me up. I'm not an automobile with gas that runs out.
But the body is in one sense.
The body may be another thing, but we're talking about me. And similarly, when you say that it's not Mother Earth, it's all coming from Radha and Krishna, you're denying all these wonderful personalities who are actually giving it to you. It's like if you were to say to your mother, Mom, this nice milk you have here in your breast, that's okay, but it's actually coming from Radharani, so I'm not going to give you a Mother's Day card this year. It's not only ignorant, it's not only an insult, but it's ungrateful. It's ungrateful. Therefore, you should not jump over Mother Earth, not jump over the demigods, not jump over anybody. If even a poor beggar on the street gives you something, don't just say, oh, well, that all glories to the Supreme for arranging this. But actually, thank that person for doing it. Because he He did it. If you want to see everything is happening by the Supreme, that's also impersonalism. Huh? But that's impersonalism. You boil everything down to formulas. You boil everything down to business. I'm supposed to get it. You should thank that person. You did something good for me. I thank you for that. At least you should be thankful. It's a simple human trait. Impersonalism runs rampant. Even while talking about personalism, it's just impersonalism in another guise. In this way, instead of talking about the Brahman, you talk about Radha and Krishna. Or you talk about Krishna. They don't talk about Radha. You talk about Krishna. But in fact, you have as little realization of Krishna as you do of the Brahman. You know, it's all Krishna. Krishna's everywhere. Krishna's making everything happen. Okay, sure. But unless you know that Krishna and you're thankful to that Krishna, you can talk to that Krishna and tell him that, then you're impersonal. There's nothing wrong with helping people, you know. I don't see how it's better to just sweep and clean an ashram where people live in it to go out and sell paintings all day than to make a hospital where you can freely take care of people who are sick. I don't see why one is better than the other. I don't see that we should judge it like that. You should judge a person's activities as a spiritualist just because it's not in your conception. I think it's wrong. You know, when I was sick in 1972 in India, very sick, I was in the Ramakrishna Mission Hospital in Bombay. They were the only ones to take me. The other hospitals wouldn't even let me in because I was so sick. They thought I was contagious. They wouldn't let me in. They let me in and let me be there free for 1 month, free. You know, I got a lot of respect for those people. A lot of respect. And then I thought, you know, they're actually doing something here. It's not so bad. I was there over Christmas also, and on Christmas Day they had a wonderful party with the children of the neighborhood. It wasn't so bad. I didn't think it was so bad. I mean, I thought they didn't understand much about, you know, higher realms of philosophy, but that was my prejudice in those days, and maybe they didn't also, but still, I don't think that what goes on in a lot of temples, for instance, is much better. You know? Even, you know, if you sell cakes all day, is that better? If you sell paintings all day, is that better? If you're simply pushing papers around all day and answering the mail, is that necessarily better? And if you're out preaching all day, is that better? Are you actually giving somebody something better? Or are you turning them off, actually? Or causing them to enter into a state of repression where they're going to end up in a situation which is worse than before you got to them?
It's interesting that if you call somebody dogs and hogs and then beginning to preach them without love, how it will work?
It won't. It will not. It will not. It will not. No way. And preaching, the whole concept of preaching is so unattractive. Preach to somebody. Preach. I'm going to preach to you. Preach. The very word is just so like yuck. I mean, you can, of course, give some knowledge that you might have, but if you do it in a judgmental way, you need this. You should do like this. How many times do you hear, we must do this, we should do this, we have to do that, we cannot do this, we should? That's preaching. Did Lord Chaitanya preach? No. He didn't preach to them either. Lord Chaitanya, for example, Prakashananda Saraswati, he sat down. Let's see, who is it now? Yeah, he sat down in a dirty place, yeah? Prakashananda Saraswati. Lord Chaitanya sat down in a dirty place when Prakashananda Saraswati and all the Mayavadis were sitting there. They called Lord Chaitanya over. They said, "What's your problem?" He said, "Well, you know, I don't think your explanations are very good, but, you know." And they said, "Well, what are your explanations?" And he said, "Well, I think like this and that." And they said, "That's really nice." He didn't preach to them. Of course, when he got in a philosophical debate with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he defeated Bhattacharya. But that was not preaching. He was defeating a philosophical point. When he went, for example, all over South India, during his so-called time of preaching, he wasn't even preaching either. He was chanting Hare Krishna. People were developing love. He would embrace people. People would develop love of Godhead. With very, very few persons did he ever speak. And when he spoke, he did not preach in the same way that we do it. He simply gave them the gifts of love of Godhead. It was a total different situation.
You mentioned it about they were telling you that you got everything from him. If we study the opinions of the people which were acharyas, which were in the disciplic succession, especially I think this commentary of Vaishwanath Chakravarti Thakur on the Bhagavad Gita verse 241, it's really I think when he says that my intelligence only can be called fixed and until I'm following the instructions of my spiritual master. And do I
But
leave?
that's his particular feeling in that particular place. But do you really think do you even know who Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's spiritual master was?
No,
No,
I don't remember.
You don't know. Nobody knows. No one has the faintest idea who his spiritual master was. Everybody remembers Vishwanath Chakravarti. Nobody remembers his spiritual master. It's not in the list either, because that list is not a disciplic succession. Huh? I don't know. Nobody knows.
Also Narottam Das Thakur, also Bhaktivinoda Thakur. They always are very, I don't know.
Sure,
heavy.
it's good to get blessings. It's good to get mercy. But you know, to say that anything that Bhaktivinoda Thakur did was only because of his spiritual master, do you believe that? Do you think Vishwanath Chakravarti is only because Vishwanath Chakravarti, they say, was an incarnation of Rupa Goswami? Was it because of his spiritual master that he could write such wonderful books? It's a way of speaking. It's part of the culture. It's part of the tradition. It's a humility. Instead of saying, "Me, I'm great, I'm wonderful," you give credit to someone else. Yeah? In this way, you avoid the trap of having to take credit for yourself. But in fact, does it mean it's so? And if I criticize some sociological or philosophical concepts which caused harm to thousands of people, does that mean that, you know, I'm now a nothing because I got everything from that person? I'm not a nothing. And I didn't get everything from that person. But the reason they say it is not also that I think I'm so great or that, you know, I didn't get anything. But what I'm saying here is that there were mistakes. I try to correct them. They defend by saying, "You're a nothing, you should be grateful because you got everything, and you're going to become worse than nothing." This is crazy, you know? This is wrong. This is the mistake. I'll glorify who I want to glorify for what I really got. And I may glorify people that you may be amazed. I may glorify my grandmother, for instance. I may glorify, you know, a person I just meet on the street as giving me something. I may glorify a tree as giving me something. It is not that I have to only glorify one person who might have given me something. I can also glorify that person for giving me something too, when I feel like it. Now I may not feel like it because I'm in a rebellion mood. I'm rebelling and revolting against all the things which caused so much harm to people and which did not spread Lord Chaitanya's mission. That's why I'm rebelling now. Later on, when I don't have to, maybe I'll say something different. Probably I will, but we're not going to talk about that now. But right now, I'm doing a particular thing. And I see no reason whatsoever that I can't have the freedom to glorify any particular person I want who actually gave me something, according to what I felt I received. And what I felt I received, I may have felt more I received from other personalities. For example, Lord Nrsingadev, or for example, Lord Shiva Goddess Parvati, or for example, Radha and Madhava in Mayapur, or for example, Gandharvika Girdhari. Maybe they influence me more than anyone else. Maybe. But it's my perception, and it's my right to say it. I do not have to be told who gave it to me, because nobody knows who gave me what. I know who gave me, and I will glorify those persons, whoever they may be. And I don't have to feel guilty about that. And I'm not stuck to one person only learning from. If I find 10 people who can teach me, I'll learn from 10 people. Whoever can teach me, I will learn, because I like to learn.
What could be the reasons for some saints to call themselves worms, or like someone said, if they will pronounce my name, they will.
Yeah, that's
go in
Krishnadas Kaviraj
hell.
Goswami, and he also said that envious persons who are like hogs and pigs criticize my work.
Yeah. Yeah, but about himself.
Yeah, but he called them hogs and pigs. Come on, we're just people, you know. Don't try to box everybody into some absolute way of dealing with things. Sometimes I also feel like a worm. Even me, you know, who's so proud and puffed up. Sometimes I also feel like a worm, you know. Sometimes I feel like a pile of garbage. Sometimes she kicks me because of that. Quite often I feel like that. And sometimes I feel, hey, I'm not so bad. And when I talk in public, I always talk like, you know, I'm the greatest thing. That's just the way I am. I'm a great showman, you know. I'm doing the show, the Hari show. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's how I feel all the time. And it's not necessarily how I might express it tomorrow or 5 minutes from now or when I walk out this door. I want the right to express how I feel when I feel like it. I'm not going to be bound like that.
Question of another kind at all. Because
Thank you.
Because all of us know, and you of course too, that we intend to organize the new publishing house with a special name, Future of the Earth.
Is she the president?
And
good. Hi.
I suppose that you to do such a name and title for this publishing house have some ideas about this future, and please tell us about them too. What do you mean?
You know,
If you are, of course.
Thank you, sure. When I came up with the name Earth Future,
Yes.
It doesn't really mean the future of the Earth. It means Earth Future. What it means is we're looking for into the future of the Earth and trying to help the future.
Yes, of course.
And what that help I feel that we should give is to give people back, or give back to people the freedom to be what they are and stop telling them what they should be, and to give them the means by which they can be what they are and be happy with themselves because they are something wonderful. And not that they just become something wonderful, you know, like somebody who looks in the mirror and thinks, oh, I'm so beautiful. I mean that their heart, their soul, their spiritual energy, they realize that, and that is beautiful and wonderful. And I feel that's the future of the Earth. Because if that is understood, then naturally love between people will manifest, and then wars will diminish. Crime will diminish, or violent crimes will diminish, or child abuse, which is one of my most, shall we say, I feel most strongly about it, or familial abuse, or this constant divorce that's going on everywhere, or abuse of people, or whatever. I want to diminish that as far as I can by creating a situation in which people can flourish, in which people can develop peacefully and without unnecessary burdens or restrictions or obstacles. And I thought that was Earth Future. And to that end, I felt that we needed people who knew what they were talking about, and to get that point you need to publish books by which people can read and understand what they're talking about and develop themselves. And also people should become healed in themselves so that they may become actually freed from the conditioning which is placed upon them by the various conditions they placed upon themselves, which is what disease really is, basically. You create it yourself. Even in the Ayurveda it says overeating, anxiety, and uncleanliness. These three things are created by you. Of course, you know, there are amoebas and junk like that, but that's another thing. But that falls in the category of uncleanliness. But it is important that we get the capacity to heal ourselves to the degree by which we're able to contact ourselves in our pure form and not have to contact the disease all the time. You know, not to have to contact the infections all the time.
Yes,
to get to the.
Yes. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Nobody ever asked me about the name before, and I thought that was nice. That's a good. Why? I don't know why nobody ever asked.
Why? It's a really question, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like the first question you would think somebody would ask. Sometimes the most obvious things nobody thinks about. Like what I'm saying now it's completely obvious, isn't it? I don't think, except maybe for the jiva thing, I'm not sure, but almost everything I've said tonight is common sense, isn't it? Or it's obvious, isn't it? Or, what do you think? I think it's pretty obvious. And yet, it's so interesting. At least I find it interesting. Here I am very self-centered. I find it interesting, so I figure you must find it interesting too, but you haven't all walked out of the room yet, so I figure you might find something interesting. But it's so obvious. It's obvious, yet, and you know why it's obvious? Because it's already there in your heart. You already understand it. All I'm doing is just touching the chords that are already there. I'm not putting a philosophy on you. I'm just touching what's in there on you, in there already. You understand this? I think if you think about it, especially when I'm talking, you'll realize that's actually what's happening. Because I don't even have to explain a lot, you know. I just touch the chord. All I do is just say something and it wakes it up in you. Poof, all of a sudden. Yeah. Yep. Because it's already there. But if I start telling you about the three modes of material nature, you know, and renunciation, and you go, you know, you live on grass or water, or you just breathe every 6 months, or, you know, you just chant for 12 hours a day, you know, or you just fast for 16 million years, or, you know, I mean, this doesn't strike any chord whatsoever. You know?
Kind of funny feeling I got always from you when you were speaking last year. I was always feeling unintentionally. I was agreeing with everything. I was never agreeing. I don't want to agree with everything, but it's so harmonically, I don't know. Like
you're not agreeing. You are that. You're not agreeing. You are that.
Seems like
because ultimately we all have the same understanding in our hearts. Everybody. That's why when you get to the bottom of all religions, you'll find very similar principles and very similar perversion of the principles when the organization got involved. As soon as it became organized, the same perversion of the principles took place in all organizations. Because when men organize and dominate, they create a particular perversion of the beautiful spiritual principle in order to keep people working in the organization peacefully. And that is what is bad about organized religion.
So you can't say that everything is good if it is happening naturally.
Well, cancer also is natural from one point of view.
But it can be good in...
It's not good. It's unnatural because it occurs due to unnatural things in the body. You know, but natural is a very misused word.
What is the proper word?
The proper word is of your nature. Of your nature, not natural. Of your nature. Because you're speaking of a person there. Natural is impersonal. Your nature, very personal. Of your nature.
Could you clarify the idea of God realization?
Of what?
The idea of God realization.
The idea.
Yes. According to you, what is it?
Well, we do accept there is a God, yeah? And we do accept that that God can be known to some degree. Now, I'll tell you what it is not first. It is not a philosophical construction. It is not something you learn in a course in school. It is not something that you can just imagine. It is something which exists. Now, when there is something which exists, how do you find out about it? Well, the best way to find out about something really is to go to it and interact with it so that you understand about it in relationship to you. Because it's like, I'll give you an example of a person. If you want to find out about a person, realize the person. The best way is to go to the person and relate with the person. Because the person as an abstraction is one thing, or as how that person deals with all other persons is one thing, but how that person deals with you is the most important thing, because when you talk about realization, you're talking about that which you realize. So therefore, the relationship between you and that person is the most important thing, because you've got to realize it. So you have to come in contact with it personally. Similarly, God realization is something which you have to do personally between you and God. Because you may read for 1,000,000 years about what other persons realized about God. And that may also be good and may help you. But when it comes to realization, because you use that word, is that you must come yourself in contact with God and make your own realization. Now, how do you do that? I suggest, and I did last time when we were here, you first come in contact with yourself. And when you're in contact with yourself, then because you are non-different from the Lord, the energy will flow between the two of you, and that relationship will begin. Therefore, the question is how to contact the self. That is not self-realization, but rather that is self-awareness. You have to understand yourself. It's not something you realize. Or maybe it is also. It's just a question of words. But I think it's more of a question of awareness, in the sense that if I think of myself only as some spiritual being who's totally different from the material world, no connection whatsoever, yeah? Then realization makes sense. I just do some sadhana, I do some practices, and all of a sudden, poof, I'm on the other side, and I realize that thing. That, whether it's true or not, I'm not going to bother talking about now. That is very difficult to do, even if it is true. But I don't think it is true. I think you are not something totally different than your existence. I here am in this body. It is not that I have zero connection with this body. It's my energy which makes things work. When I have relationship with you, when I love, when I feel, when I perceive, this energy upon which everything rides, that's my energy, or your energy. It's our exchange of energy. Everything in the spiritual realm is based on energy. That relationship I have with the deities, or that relationship I have with God, or anyone, or myself, is based on energy. Therefore, I've got to come to the point of recognizing my energy for what it is. And you can recognize energy by the way it manifests. So, one way to get to the particular understanding of your energy is to recognize how it manifests. Let's say, for instance, I know how my energy manifests quite well by now. Not perfectly, but quite well. Because I'm aware of how it manifests, particularly, so it's like in a relationship like this. I know that I'm very pushy and dominant. I know that I'm intolerant of other persons trying to push into what I'm trying to say. I'm aware of myself like this. I'm also aware of why it's like that. I'm aware of these things because I have contact with my energy. I also know I can feel immediately when somebody tries to push that away. I can feel immediately when somebody blocks that off. I can feel immediately when somebody accepts that. And that's what I like, that exchange, yeah? I don't like just talking at people. I like talking with people. That means I'm feeling my energy in relationship with your energy. If I were just to sit under a tree and meditate on my energy, first of all, I would not be able to do it because I don't exist alone in this universe. There's living entities everywhere. I'd be exchanging with the tree I'm sitting under. I can't avoid it. I'd be exchanging with the living entities all over the universe. You're never alone. Therefore, it's impossible to separate you and everybody else. It's impossible. So why bother trying? Why not discover yourself in the relationship with others? Why not discover your spiritual energy by experiencing the spiritual energy of others? Even trees, even dogs, even cows, even horses, even birds. And by experiencing this exchange of spiritual energy, you come in contact more and more with your awareness of your energy. And when you can do that, then you become energy. You're no longer the body. You are that energy which exchanges with others. You are not hidden away in some cave in the Himalayas, neither are you in some temple room chanting japa all day or any variation in between. You are your energy which is exchanging with others. You are sharing your spiritual energy with others' spiritual energies, who will more or less reciprocate with you. And when there's a full reciprocation going on, you've got a very clear understanding of spiritual energy. And when there's a blocked reciprocation, you may give, but you don't really have that flow. Therefore, when the flow is moving fully, you have realization of your energy, the other person's energy, you are in full contact with that. And when you've got that capacity, and you point that towards, or that's a horrible thing to say, when you offer your energy at the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna, or even better, to the heart of Radha and Krishna, then your spiritual energy flows with their spiritual energy. And because they are so thankful to you for what you just did, because you contacted them with your love, then immediately it flows back to you 10 times more powerful, which just makes it flow back to them 10 times more powerful. And it just flows and flows and flows. And that's God realization. Not that all of a sudden you realize you're a gopi who wears a green dress and you're named Chitra, whatever, and you're doing some flower picking in Vringaloka Vrindavan. That's also wonderful, and one day you may get there, I don't know. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about that flow of loving energy between Radha and Krishna. I'm not trying to put down in any way whatsoever that other thing. But that is not the way to get to self-realization. It doesn't work like that. First you contact them, then everything else follows. And to contact them, you have to contact you. And to contact you, you've got to do something by which that energy can become, just like when you're, when you're mixing something or purifying something by churning it like this, it becomes more and more homogenized, or more and more, it becomes more and more clear as to what it is. Like when paint mixes, the oil and the pigment or whatever, you've got to mix it, and then it becomes in its proper form. It's got to churn, yeah? Churning. It's a very bad word. Words, what can you do? And I'm not very eloquent in using words, but I mean to say that the concept is to let it flow and to take it and move it and work with it, work with it, work with it, work with it. Work with yourself with that energy, work with it with others. And do it with many people, not just one person. Do it with many people. Do it with trees even. Trees are wonderful beings. I mean, I don't know if you've had contact with trees, but they're beautiful. And they can tell you wonderful things. Not all trees, but quite a few of them are quite aware. And you can talk with them. I know it sounds wild, but it's true. And she talks with animals. She talks with the horses that she rides, I mean, it's not weird. It's true. These are living beings, and maybe they don't have the same kind of hang-ups or problems or ways of expressing themselves that we do, but you can certainly communicate with them. And when you do, it's a gorgeous, beautiful thing. And you find yourself in that communication too. You can find yourself by communicating with others, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. That's a psychological axiom. That's what psychology is built on. You communicate with others, and you find yourself in that communication. You communicate with your therapist.
Simply, I meant, what happens when you find yourself already? what is your difference between the realized person and the unrealized person? Final idea of liberation, for example, what is it?
It depends, because everybody has his particular natural position where he's most properly situated. Some living entities are most happy in Brahman, some are most happy in Kailasa, some are most happy in Vaikuntha, some are most happy in Goloka, some are most happy staying right here and continuing with their realization as they've got it. They see no reason to go anywhere. It depends on each and every particular individual. You can't say this is better, that's worse. You can't say it's bad. This person has this position, that's bad. Why is it bad? It's perfect for them. They're happy there. Fine. I'm not going to do anything to move you out of it because something else is better. It doesn't make sense. But there is definitely different ways in which the Supreme manifests, and when one understands those different ways, one very much comes to appreciate the Supreme in all the Supreme's magnificence. Is that okay?
Thank you.
I was found very interesting point how love is manifesting. When I was in ISKCON, I catched myself a few times, always, like when a few people was singing kirtans or whatever, I was feeling love coming from them, and I was crying sometimes. And nowadays, just recently, I found out about some people, maybe, I don't know, maybe you know them also, singers, women, Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey.
Celine Dion, what's her name? Celine Dion? That Titanic song? You know the Titanic song?
Yeah, but
I'm doing my exercises in the gym, you know, because I have this therapy for my shoulder, and all of a sudden this song comes on, and I'm just like, it was just so like, you know. I mean, of course, it wasn't like what you might call spiritual, but that lady tapped into such a love in that song that it just like, I just, you know, that it affected me like that. I was just completely melted all over the place, you know. And it's true what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because the effect we are talking about, the effect, isn't it? Not about, and then the whole question about spiritual life is, I don't know, it's quite relative, or
no, not necessarily. It's because
you're getting love, because I found that this Mariah Carey, which she has also the disc, any song she's singing, it's heart chakra working. I don't know, it's love chakra, it's love coming out.
For you.
Okay.
There's some people who can't stand her. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. There's some people who would not buy her record.
Really?
And there's some people who adore her. It's not necessarily that. There's some people who listen to somebody chanting Hare Krishna and they can't stand it. Another person cries in ecstasy. We have to just let it be, you know. We have our energy, and when our energy finds connection with another person's energy, let it flow. Don't stop it. And don't force it. There's nothing wrong with it. Go for it.
Yeah, and also such, for example, music as Beatles, which I love very much. I don't know, but
I love Celtic music.
Huh?
Celtic.
Irish.
Not Irish. It's Celtic. There's also, it comes from Wales and Scotland.
Oh, really? I also
Celtic.
love it
It's
very
beautiful
much.
music. Yeah, beautiful.
I don't know.
Celtic.
Celtic. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, everybody has a particular kind of sound vibration, which makes him feel.
Yeah.
You know, feel. And that's good. You know, they're like Garo, you know, that Armenian, you know, Garo, the Armenian violin player? You don't know. Anyway, Kirtan used to know him. Kirtan Ras used to know him, you know? You know him? Garo. Wow. Phew. Wow. You know, I just listen. I'm just going nuts when that guy's playing. Huh? But when I told Kirtan, I said, boy, this guy plays such good violin. He said, oh, come on, everybody in Armenia plays like that. That's not the big deal. I said, ah. Kirtan told me something funny. He said, in Armenia, there are so many expert soloists, but they could never get together in orchestra. Because when Armenians get together, they ruin everything. And therefore they go off and become great soloists. All over the world there's great soloists, where they could never make an orchestra.
About this area of North Europe and their sound vibrations. There have something within there. I don't know.
Because it's very old also.
Yeah, and what kind of, I don't know, culture or tradition?
But you know, American Indians have the same thing.
The same thing?
Not the same, but it's pretty good music too they have.
Sound similar?
It doesn't sound similar, but it's very good. Chinese music. It's very late, you know, it's 10 to 8.
What would you call, when you say something is spiritual or not spiritual?
I don't know, I don't want to judge it like that.
What would you, how can one say this is spiritual, this is material?
I mean, you could, of course, if you wish to draw lines, yeah? You could start drawing lines and say, anything on that side is material, anything on that side is spiritual. Now, Rupa Goswami, because he was very intelligent, he didn't draw such a line. He said anything that can be used in service to Krishna is spiritual. Anything which is used for exploitation, yeah, meaning just sense gratification, exploitation, yeah, is not spiritual. Or rather, that which is, he was talking in terms of renunciation, vairagya, yeah, but to renounce that which can be used in the service of Krishna is false. That means, because those things are spiritual by nature, they transform into spiritual nature. That to accept things which are born of, have no contact with Krishna, this is material renunciation, or a material thing. Now, Rupa Goswami himself did not make such distinctions because he was a Mahabhagavata. He saw every person as a servant of the Lord. He saw everything as spiritual. Now, the reason why he saw everything as spiritual is not because he was in some illusion, it was because everything is spiritual, because that's all there is spiritual energy. Because all energy comes from the Supreme. What energy comes from Radha and Krishna is spiritual. You can't have anything but spiritual energy come from them. In fact, everything everywhere is spiritual. That's why a Mahabhagavata, a great advanced soul, sees it as spiritual because it is spiritual. However, when you are not on that level, or you are seeing things from another point of view for a particular purpose, then you might start dividing things as spiritual and material for the sake of other person's advancement. Like, for example, you might tell people to do something which makes you forget Krishna is material. Or to do something which has no connection with Krishna is material. You could say like that. But then you run into the problem of, for example, Arjuna, when he was fighting that battle of Kurukshetra, at times might have forgotten about Krishna. When he was thinking about the arrows, he wasn't thinking about Krishna. But as soon as there was a pause, or as soon as he questioned within himself, why am I doing this? Krishna was there immediately. So really, the motivation one has, or the connection and love that one has, can make a spiritual thing material, can make a material thing spiritual if it's connected to Krishna. For example, some Swami said that I'm living a materialistic lifestyle. Then I wondered about that. I said, what makes my lifestyle more materialistic than his? He plays with his computer all day. All day long he's playing with his computer. Or he's going here and there, or he's doing whatever he's doing. I'm not even playing with my computer all day. It's not that I'm trying to create something material. I'm interested in doing a spiritual thing. I'm doing with my computer, I put programs in, I try to fix this and that. I clean things, I do whatever. I do the same thing that everybody else does. I may not spend 2 hours a day with beads in my hands, but wherever I get the chance, I chant. I offer my food. I don't offer food which is unofferable. I want to know why this is a materialistic lifestyle and that is a spiritual lifestyle. It's just a judgment. Understand? A relative judgment. That you judge. This is material, this is spiritual. Everybody makes that judgment. Even if they're within ISKCON, everybody's saying, this is spiritual, that's material, this is spiritual, that person's in Maya, this person's in Maya, this person's in Maya. This person's a very highly elevated soul. I used to be one of them. Super highly elevated souls. Now I'm totally in Maya. It's just people making judgments. Other people say, the so-called highly elevated souls who are still so-called high, they're in Maya, and this guy's not in Maya anymore. It's all just judgments. When you start judging like this, you immediately enter into the material realm. Because you can see spirituality in everything when you have the capacity to see it. And when you can't see it, you can't see it in anything, even in the deity, or even in the holy name of the Lord. You may even chant Hare Krishna and not find spirituality in it. You may look at the deities and find nothing spiritual there. And yet, you may also find, externally be very materialistic, and find great spirituality there, in that person. It is not something that can be boiled down to formula. It is in each and every individual case, at each and every individual moment. It's questioned, it's questionable, because it's a flow. Spirit is energy. Energy is flowing. And it may flow into a spiritual thought, it may flow into a material thought, according to the way you judge it. Understand? Even somebody who's a great so-called great devotee who's doing totally spiritual life, which means he gets up in the morning, takes a cold shower, goes to Mangal Arti, chants his japa, goes to Guru Puja, and sits in the Bhagavatam class, although he can't stand it, and then eats prasadam and goes out and works all day. That's spiritual, totally spiritual life. But the person's mind and consciousness may be completely material according to somebody else's judgment, even according to his own judgment. Whereas a person may be just in the field taking care of some cows, or there was an incarnation of Vishnu, one of the Alvars. All he did was take care of the Tulsi garden all day. He was a gardener, and be totally in the spiritual world. You cannot make lines like that. Of course you can say the guy who's slaughtering animals and, prostitutes, isn't that a famous one? But there may be prostitutes who are just stuck there by social circumstances into that situation, who may be within themselves very nice spiritual people. I know the devotees in Switzerland, in Zurich, they used to go to the prostitutes to sell books. They said they were the nicest persons in Zurich. I mean, of course, maybe they were nice because they wanted to make some money off, I don't know. I'm not going to judge them like that. I'm just trying to, because somebody will bring up that point. But really, when it all boils down to it, you cannot make such a judgment. But what you can do is, you can try to develop yourself more and more so that you come in contact with your own spiritual energy. You develop that spiritual energy more and more, then all of these conceptions of spiritual and material just fall away, because you stop thinking in such terms and you start working with the spiritual energy all the time. You don't worry about the material energy anymore. It's no longer required that you make a constant analysis, this is spiritual, this is material, because you're working with the essence, which is the spiritual energy. That is the point. When you're working with the essence, you don't worry about the detail, because you've got the essence already. And you will naturally and automatically be unattracted or repulsed even by certain kinds of energies. If I'm living such a materialistic lifestyle, then why am I so repulsed by things in passion and ignorance? Totally repulsed. I don't even want to have anything to do with them. I may do it out of social whatever, I don't know, but I'm totally repulsed by it. Not repulsed in the sense that my energy is repulsed. I'm not going to say, that's hate, that's bad, burn in hell. But my energy says, don't flow there. Don't flow that way. Stop it. Get out of that situation. Yeah? Because when you're flowing with the Spirit, you don't want to flow with anything else. And that flowing with the Spirit means to flow with living forces, living beings, in a very beautiful way, in a spiritual level. Because that is the Spirit. That is the Spirit's soul. Not necessarily the table, or the altar, or the bead bag, or the meat hanging in the butcher shop. You don't worry about that. You worry about the Spirit. Then you stop judging all the time. Then all of a sudden, the doors to relationship with all people and all living entities open. And all of a sudden, everybody's concept of what is material starts to dissolve, because everybody becomes involved in the spiritual exchanges which are going on. So long as you keep making, this is material, that's spiritual, this is material, that's spiritual, you're in Maya, that's material, stop this, you're going to burn in hell. You are making us and them, and when you have us and them, only those who are interested in the us are on the us side, and all the rest are on the them side, which means you're making more and more discrimination, more and more distinctions, and more separation, more and more differences. And the differences do not unite people in love of God. It's the singularity, the similarity, the oneness between all living entities. We are all part of God. We are all the same quality. We can connect with the Supreme as the same quality. That is the way to open the door so Lord Chaitanya's love can go to everyone, because that's the way. Therefore, I've stopped making such distinctions. That's material, that's spiritual. However, in me, I know there are certain things my energy refuses to enter into. And there are certain things my energy doesn't mind entering into for the sake of circumstances, and there are certain things my energy loves entering into.
But I actually meant to...
But was that answer okay? Does that make sense? I mean, that's my philosophy behind what I said.
Yeah,
I don't know if it answered your question or not.
Yeah, actually it did in a way, but what I actually meant to say that if what I'm thinking personally, my perception nowadays is that a person is in any case spiritual, and whatever happens to it, it's his way to God. He's making his way to God. Krishna says, because everybody follows my path. In any case. So whatever happens...
I don't think you mean to say that anything anyone does brings him to God.
No.
But what you mean to say is that he's going according to his capacity.
To his capacity, and in that sense it is spiritual, because this is the path of the soul. And the soul learns every time something. It gets always some experience. And because this experience is spiritual, because the soul is who is experiencing in any case. That's why I would tend to call everything, I would not like to call anything material in that sense, because it all has something to do with the spiritual, with the soul of everybody. In that sense, I'm kind of, I don't like anymore calling anything material anymore.
One can just call it ignorance, then, that there might be ignorance.
But we already discussed today the ignorance thing, that we shouldn't say taking out something from ignorance. This ignorance is his way of learning things, because Krishna would not allow this ignorance to happen, because whatever is arranged in this world is for the benefit of the jiva to learn. Even going deeper in ignorance, he learns. That's why this is spiritual.
Yes,
because this is God's creation.
Yeah.
He created this.
But from your point of view, it's ignorance. So the ignorance is depending on your level of awareness and consciousness.
Who am I? You mean who perceives everybody else?
Your perception.
No, I have nothing to do with it.
Yeah,
it's their path. Why do I have to care about their path? But this is their path to God. They are learning things, and this is spiritual. That's what I think. Maybe I'm wrong.
But also God helps them
how I perceive their path, but it's their path to go. Actually, this is the essence what he says.
No. I'm not saying like that, because what I'm saying is that I'm taking it from my point of view. I'm not removing myself from the discussion and just speaking about those guys out there. I'm speaking it specifically, me and them. And when I say that, I mean that the energy is flowing. When the spiritual energy is flowing, then I don't worry about what's material anymore because it no longer has importance. It's not that I'm saying that anybody can do anything they want and that's all spiritual. I never said that. I haven't even thought of it like that. That's another way of looking at it. I would say in that regard that a person may be doing something like she said in ignorance, and it's not actually bringing them rapidly to the end result. And it's just like, if somebody may say, okay, well, you may be cured from this disease when you're 100 years old. But I say that, well, why should you suffer for 50 years? Why can't I cure you tomorrow? That's my kind of thinking. So, okay, you may be going through ignorance and you may learn something on your path and next lifetime start again. But I'm saying, why not help them accelerate the process and get to someplace nice fast? So therefore I wouldn't think, well, that they can be whatever they want and it's all spiritual. I wouldn't think like that, no. And I didn't mean that. I want to help them do it faster. Otherwise, why would I talk?
Faster than this would be natural for them?
I didn't use the word natural. What's their nature?
What's the
it's their
difference
nature.
between Hare Krishnas and us then? They also want everybody to make faster go back to God.
I just want to assist. I'm giving an assistance, that's all. You take it or leave it as you like. And I'm not going to judge you if you don't. I don't say that you're bad, you're Maya, you're this or that. I just want to help you learn faster. Isn't that every teacher's desire? That his students should learn? I'm not saying it has to be faster than you can do it.
Yes,
I'm just saying it should be faster than if you don't do it.
Yeah, so look what I say now. Someone is, let's say, he has a family and takes care of children, and he thinks that this is perfectly what he is supposed to do. And even if you offer him something, he doesn't take. Because he thinks that... So, now, what's wrong with it? He goes his way now. This is his way. Nothing wrong is there. Because he's learning his
You created a straw man. You're creating a straw man.
What straw man?
The straw man is that I somehow said something which is criticizing the person who's not interested in developing himself. But I never did that.
I don't say that you criticize someone who...
Oh, okay. What did you say?
But I have nothing against what you say, because what you say is correct. Everything is correct. What I say is that that I don't like calling normal life from somebody's point of view. Maybe he's not a murderer. He just lives normal life, which one may not notice anything spiritual in his life. And has a family and
Are you
takes
saying
care
you don't
of
like
children.
to make a distinction between matter and spirit?
Yeah, I don't like it. I can't make that distinction
now that makes
nowadays.
sense. That makes sense. But if you're going to do it the old way, the first thing you had to do was make a distinction between matter and spirit. But when I'm speaking like this, I'm giving the way in which you can do it without making that distinction, which is, you see, when I spoke about the energy exchange and all that of spirit, you don't have to worry about the material, because you can do that with anybody, actually. And that's what Lord Chaitanya used to do. Lord Chaitanya's associates used to do. They used to just make that spiritual exchange, and everybody was overflooded with their love. That is the real potency. But if you're not doing that, and you want to take up some spiritual life according to some traditional analysis, then the first thing you do is you say, that's material, that's spiritual. Is it the same? Yeah.
Wouldn't it be proper then to operate with the word love?
Love?
Because if you...
Yes, but love is a generality.
Yeah, like the Rupa Goswami, she was describing the steps, yeah? From the Shraddha, it's a very simple thing, which all the people have to each other even. And also Nishta, this firm faith. Sometimes people also have it in someone or in something. And this is actually the things which people appreciate the most between each other.
That's love is the spiritual energy.
Yeah. And also...
What I said was actually what you were trying to get at? Or you wanted to say more? Because you cut me off before I finished again.
I think you understood what I mean.
Yeah.
I just don't like calling anybody's life material, because there is no certain science of manifestations of what somebody would consider a spiritual thing or something, because this is the path of that particular soul, which nobody knows whether it is beneficial for him or not. Maybe this is his way of learning, and that's why, because the soul is advancing, this is spiritual.
Or maybe within the heart of that soul, that person is very deeply in connection with the Supreme.
Everybody's in the connection in a way. Maybe he doesn't even consider, but even if he's,
But I mean,
he's
maybe
not conscious,
he's
even he
actually
is, yeah,
deeply conscious of
yes,
it.
that's another thing. Another thing, yeah.
Not to judge.
Yeah, what I was trying to say is, hey buddy, don't start judging. Because one can always turn the mirror on you. You know? There's a saying that persons who live in glass houses shouldn't throw bricks. You know? If you live in a glass house, don't throw bricks. Because you're going to break your windows. You know? You give out judgments, you get judgments. That's a law. You have to be very careful how you deal, because it's an exchange, you know? And when you're exchanging like that, in that negative way, then you get back that negativity. Even if you're saying yourself so spiritual and you want to be so spiritual, but when you're exchanging in a negative way, the negativity comes back to you, and you're stuck with it. And because you sent it out and you got it back, it's very difficult to deal with it. Very difficult. And when you're dealing with it on the proper platform, like you were starting to say about that natural love, it's much easier to deal with because it's attractive. Okay, I quit. You think we should do this tomorrow too?
Yes, maybe we'll develop better and better because now we're beginning.
But this was 3 hours, man. 3 hours.
It's
3 hours.
Half a year.
Huh?
Half a year you are coming, that's why.
Do you want to start at 6 o'clock tomorrow instead of 5?
I don't know. 5 was fine.
Okay.
It was just that all these meetings kind of went on longer and he's not even finished yet. Because we're doing at the same time, this discussion at the same time, trying to set up this healing center and everything. It's a very difficult thing to do.
There was one, sometimes
We quit? Okay.
Sometimes I wonder why Narada Muni is not coming and preach to the people. He have all capacity and he really wants to help people, but he's coming only in certain times, in certain places, and to certain people. It means that he understands what he's doing. That's the idea.
Everyone up there knows what they're doing. They're not like us down here. Down here we experiment. Up there they don't experiment. Or at least not the way we do it. Okay, gang. Highball.
Thank you.
Thank you for tolerating me. I just don't like me when I start getting like this, you know. I don't know. I just get into this mood like, you know, I'm going to say something.
What do you feel?
Huh?
What do you feel during the discussion like that?
Oh, I feel good. I like it, you know. For me, that's somehow that fulfills something in me which makes me feel very good, you know. I guess it's kind of like my nature to teach. But I feel bad when I get into it so much, like I can see somebody wants to say something, but I don't want to be stopped, you know. So part of me feels bad that I'm not allowing the person to say something, yet the rest of me says it's better because he'll screw up everything I'm trying to say and I won't be able to remember it because it's all pure inspiration, you know. When it's pure inspiration, you can't allow somebody to say, hey, wait a minute, you know, then everything's ruined. And maybe 5 or 10 wonderful points, or maybe not so wonderful, got ruined. I can't allow that. And I don't like that in me. When I see myself doing that, I dislike it.
Could be a different arrangement sometimes when just everybody speaks what he thinks and there is a discussion. Let's say it's a different way of doing things also. But it may not be. Then it's a different value because you don't say express so much that you could share with
But
your
that I can do
experiences.
too. I can be
That's
very
different.
I can be part of a party too. I can just sit there, let everybody talk, and I'll just go, yeah, sure, why not? And, I can do that too. I really can. Yeah, I can. Right? Can I? Okay.
But actually, it's a pleasure to accept the person as he is. If he has a certain inclination, like to speak without stopping.
I don't know if this is how I am. It's just what I'm doing.
Yeah.
What I really am, I think, is a little private guy who likes to stay in his room all day, go for walks half the day. I couldn't even get out the door today. That's what I really am. Go say hello to the trees. I don't like to. This is not what I am. I don't know what it is. Something I do. Maybe because I have to. Maybe because I'm good at it. Maybe not because I'm good at it, because I like it. But it's not really who I am in that sense. But I do find myself sometimes while I'm talking, yeah. Some moments I find myself like that. But not really the talker. It's the person who connects. That's who I am. Okay, enough blah blah. Unfortunately, now my chair's down here. This is a nice chair too. Whose chair is this? Yeah? Oh, whoa, sorry, I'm wired up. I'm going to walk away with the mic.